What's up, everybody? All right, I think we're good. Yep. All right, sweet. Welcome to Rep Standard, episode one. I'm really excited. It's just me tonight, me and my notes page, and y'all. Hopefully, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. The purpose of this series, and I'll talk a little bit more about the series itself here in a second. But the purpose of this series is really for some of the new teams this year, and then kind of in perpetuity. So if you're not watching live, hello, welcome. I know I won't respond to you in chat. Heartbroken, but that's kind of the purpose of the series. Is to end up with a really cool robot and a really cool YouTube catalog of help for new teams getting into ARC or RoboMaster University Championship, um, or just kind of robotics in general, and you're just looking for a cool project to watch or tinker around or listen to a couple of us crazies ramble. But let me break down a little bit of what the heck we're doing, and then you and me and myself and y'all will dive into kind of setting the bounds on this problem. So rep standard, we talked a little bit about running a rep standard. I mean, it's been months now. I was like, hey guys, if we get a bunch of donations and prime subs, and if we raise enough money, maybe we'll build a robot. Um, Hopefully y'all tuned in to our last stream, which had the rules review for ARC. Now that the rules are out, it's kind of now or never for this year. And we've had a lot of Twitch Prime subs. I really appreciate those. They're free for y'all. They really help us get the equipment that we need to run the stream of the actual event, in addition to just doing fun things like this. And then we had like a $70 donation last month, which is freaking crazy. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And that's kind of given me the push of faith I need to kind of have our rep group jump into the rep standard. So let me talk a little bit about what the series is going to be, and then we'll dive into episode one. So the rep standard pretty much is what it sounds like. We're going to build a standard from scratch. We're going to put scratch in quotation marks. All right. I am not going to just, I've got CAD. All right. I have the CAD. I was the standard hardware team lead for several years at A&M. I could just go into a flash drive or a backup on my computer and go pull out the 2022 standard that Texas A&M used. It's not what we're doing. But we are not going to be designing Mechnum wheels. Okay. We're not going to be building our own flywheels. We're probably not making custom PCBs, but that's not on me. That's not on me. I've talked to Shar in the past, and I have Matt right as well on the team, and we've got a pretty good division of labor. So I'm gonna handle most of the hardware stuff. I've reached out to a couple people already in the community who are super down to hop on, do guest streams, chat about kind of their area on the team, their thoughts and opinions on suspension, or their thoughts and opinions on firing and the feeding mechanism. And then in addition, we have Shar, right, who will handle the software side and some of the electrical. We also have Matt, who will handle all the electrical stuff and some of the software side. Between the three of us and our big boy jobs, we should have the means and the skills to build a standard. The question is, will we have the time? I don't know. We're going to see. I believe, I have hope. I would like to think that I've learned enough in my years now, 3 years in industry and then grad school, and then my time on a RoboMasters team previously, that I could build a standard a little bit faster than maybe I could as a sophomore or junior in college. But I have different slots of time. So obviously we're starting now from blank. And that's pretty much the gist. A couple, maybe the questions y'all might have. We are not competing. That's not something that would happen because we're not a college team. We're not eligible. We might do grudge matches, maybe some salty sweets. I think it's actually Salty Sweets, right? Right, Shar? He'll get me for that one. And then just good times. Good times, fun times. We'll build a robot, see what we can do. If that sounds like something you're interested in, sweet, stick around. Make sure you hit the follow button. We'll continue to do our regular content as well. Like I mentioned, this series is kind of going to jump around from caster to caster. So I'll hopefully power through the hardware design of the standard, and make our way quickly through that so that we get to a point where we can start incorporating Shar and Matt, and so we'll kind of do solo streams. I intend to stream pretty much everything. I want this to be a resource to teams in the future where we could do an edited version as a YouTube series, allowing teams to go in, and especially new teams. If it's your first year building a bot and you get stuck because your robot keeps jamming, or it's crazy inaccurate, or you don't really get your Mechnum wheels, you've got them all on there, and maybe you don't have them in the right pattern, and your robot's just not doing what you think it should do. I want you to be able to go and reference one of these videos. So we will be streaming the whole thing as feasible, right? We're not going to stream shop time, but most of the design time, most of the coding time. There'll be some silent streams probably. There'll be some times that I'm just a study buddy if you want to come here and hang out, ask some questions, poke, give some tips, or just study for your finals while I sit here in CAD or while I sit here in ReCAD. That'd be fun times. That's kind of the premise of the rep standard. I'm really excited. Right now, the current plan is to build a bot that will be eligible for 1v1s, not to compete in them, right, but like fits the rules. 1v1s and 3v3s. And that should also basically make us good for whatever. Does anybody have any questions about the kind of the premise of the rep standard? I'm really excited. I hope it's something that y'all enjoy. I hope it's something that the community gets a kick out of. Hopefully it's a nice balance of hey, this is cool, or a community bot, something that's a starter team, help jumpstart some teams at smaller universities where maybe you're the first person on your team or the first 5 people on your team. It'll help you have another spot in addition to the community forums and the Discord pages and everything that we already have. I'm sure there will also be some hilarious moments. The outro robot? Hold on, let me show it to you for a second. Okay, so that's my garage with a standard that I built during COVID. Look, it would have actually done pretty well, okay? But before COVID hit, we were all in this room doing the design stage of the bot. I was the hardware lead at the time. One of the engineers working with me raised his hand. I came over. He was asking me a question about getting everything to fit up. We had these universal joints, these shafts. We were not going to suspend the motors. We were going to suspend the wheels and run the drive through universal joints. Our project manager at the time didn't want us to suspend the motors. And I said, all right, fine. He said, hey, this doesn't fit. I need to shorten the shaft of the motors in the CAD, right? I said, no problem, dude. We have so many tools in the shop at A&M. Surely won't be an issue. Go ahead, shorten the shaft on the motors. So he modified the shaft length of the motors like I told him that we could. And then we just went on our merry way, and everybody forgot. So fast forward like 3 months, COVID has hit. All of the facilities are closed. I'm now in the garage at my parents' house trying to build a standard. And I'm trying to get this dang thing to fit together, and the universal joints keep like freezing up. There's not enough room. I got it to fit. But that robot suspension was so cursed. You had to put it on in like a certain order. It was just tolerance slop that allowed it to fit together. It shouldn't have fit together at all. But I did not have the tools necessary in that garage to chop the shafts of those 3508s. So I'm sure, based on my own past experiences, there will be some goofy moments. Yeah, yeah, John. John was on the team back then, and you did get some fun experience trying to make that work. That outro clip is really bittersweet for me every time. It's freaking hilarious. Because it just limps around in circles, and also it is a little bit sweet because I'm proud of the fact that that thing drove. It's one of the only clips of footage of the universal joint standard ever doing anything before we moved on to a much better form factor. All right. So let's go ahead and start diving in. Tonight we're just trying to set the tonight we're trying to set what the expectations are. Um, Expectations isn't the right word. We're trying to set the hard boundaries of what our robot's going to do, of where our robot's going to be. So first, let's pull up the rules manual again. Switch back over here. Here we go, folks. We are live. We're doing it together. All right. There we go. Oh, this is just going to tell me that I can build it according to the ARMUC rules, huh? So let's take a couple peeks. ARMUC. Oh, chat. First thing I want to talk about is size. Where did we go? Infantry. Here we are. All right. So we've got a couple hard limits, and then we're gonna set some soft limits inside of that. One of the kind of hilarious traps that I see a lot of teams fall into is they build the biggest, heaviest robot that they're allowed to, just because that's the limits that are written down. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. You don't want to get to comp and realize your robot is a little bit overweight or a little bit out of size, or doesn't really fit through some of the terrain. And that's something we're going to look at this year. We get one 17 millimeter launching mechanism, no problem, totally chilling. One of the things that we'll want to take a note from this year is we want a pretty large hopper capacity, because we don't reload anymore. And then there were a couple measurements I wanted to grab from the field here. So is 700 millimeters the smallest gap? So we have 700 millimeters to fit underneath that, in between the box cover and the wall. We've got 1,000 millimeters in between the walls, and I think 800, right? Yeah, so a 700 millimeters is that smallest gap. Is there anything else we want to glean from the... Yeah, so it's going to be important we can make it up that 15 degree. I want to make it up that 15 degree incline easily. That's something a lot of teams have struggled with. And then also there's a large section of bumpy road. And I think for us, for today, that is primarily everything from the rules manual itself, that we want to grab. Now we need to find the specifications manual. But I think... I thought it had it linked in here. Ah. Thanks, Tim. All right. Not that a ton has changed. Got our maximum size before we expand. That's something I do want to chat with chat about. But we'll get there in a second. We need small armor modules, so that's totally normal. 25 kgs is important. That doesn't include the weight of the referee system, so that's cool. All right, let's go back over here. All right, y'all. So, look, I know I said that I want it to be a resource, and I totally will be a resource. But I do want a little bit of feedback from y'all, live chat especially, Twitch chat especially, because my YouTube boys are gone. But I'll open up YouTube chat. I want to leave y'all all the way high and dry. How crazy should we make it? Because we do have this other opportunity. All right, when we're talking about expanding standards. I know last week we were talking about gas-powered, potentially gas-powered, either suspension or projectile launching. We've got some opportunities to do some goofy stuff that teams wouldn't normally do, which would be fun from an engineering standpoint. It's pretty attractive to me from an engineering standpoint. But also, maybe if we're trying to make something that's super referenceable for future teams, maybe not the most the most helpful piece of future-proofed content, huh? All right. So 700 millimeters is the smallest gap. 15-degree inclines. We've got bumpy roads. The rule specifications manual gives us, or robot building specifications, whatever, gives us 600 by 600 by 600 millimeters. Smallest or largest starting size, and then up to 800 cubed for expanded, and then a 25 kilogram max. So for us, I'd like to aim for, I don't need to go CU Boulder small, but I'd like our footprint to be somewhere around the 500 by 500 millimeter range. Weight I don't think is going to be an issue. I think we'll easily stay underneath 20 kilograms, no problem. I'd be interested to see if that is if that's something that y'all have experienced being problematic. I think I've built those first couple standards I built were like fully aluminum, and quite heavy, I think by standard kind of terms, and we still didn't close to the weight limit. So not crazy concerned. So if we go 500 by 500, we want a large hopper. We need to make some decisions on if we're going to do top fed or bottom fed. We need to choose a wheel style. So we could do Mechnum, Omni, Swerve, something crazy. We need to choose a suspension style. We need to decide if we're going to do a spin to win. And then we need to have a chat with our electrical team. So probably our next stream, we'll have Shar on to talk electrical. So let's make a little list of the things that or Matt on to talk electrical and code. So let's talk a little bit about the things that we need to define. I want to talk about how many boards, where, what are we passing through the slip ring? That slip ring is what lets us do spin to win if you're actually joining us from a new team. And it's pretty crucial, right? If you don't have it, you can't spin to win. It allows you to pass electrical signal and power through basically a bearing. That way, when one side of your robot spins, the other side doesn't have to spin, and you don't tangle up a bunch of wires, right? Really, really good defensive maneuver. It's becoming pretty mandatory, I'd say, even for a basic bot. I think being able to spin to win, in my opinion, this is more important than CV. I am not planning on putting CV on this bot. Maybe that's a hot take. I'd love to hear it in chat if you disagree. if you think 2025 is the year that first-year teams should be worrying about CV. But Rep Standard is very much a first-year team. We're going to have probably the similar resources as a first-year team, maybe similar team size. Maybe some of y'all are starting with 3 or 4 people. Yes, we have some more experience. Yes, we've built these robots before. Yes, we've got pretty good shops, access to good shops. But for all intents and purposes, it's a first-year bot. Let's see. What other big decisions should we think about today? Oh, how many boards? Where are the boards? What are we passing through the slip ring? I want to know, because I think this is something else that the teams could do really easily, is if we're going to do like a test bench or a starter build. So, I mean, this is not going to be like a recommendation for everybody, but personally, I think it'll be pretty dang useful for us to build something pretty quickly, so that Shar and Matt can get a jump on it too. When it's year one, we'll need to start wiring stuff up. We'll need to start getting code running on things. So building either just the top half of the gimbal, the feeding mechanism, something that everyone can kind of start sinking their teeth into. Whether that's just the chassis, right? Whatever the bottom half of your chassis looks like, 4 motors, 4 wheels, that's enough that a team can start putting pieces on that, start driving it around, working on their movement code. Or the top half of the bot, you can start working on feeding and shooting. Make sure you don't have projectile jamming. All right, now let's talk a little bit of strategy. Because I know John's in the chat and he might unfollow if we don't. But in actuality, I think it's something that's pretty commonly overlooked, and is way easier to consider now, day one. So a little bit of this is just saying things like, yeah, we need suspension. Sometimes in years in the past, Preston has been a standard lead that has argued about whether we do or we don't. But with the bumpy road being there and the ramps being so prevalent, probably needing to get on and off of those ramps, the suspension is going to be pretty functional. I think it's worth it at this point. I think strategy also makes us do things like consider a big hopper. How big? We should do some math. We'll look at the cooling rate. I think we'll probably need, if I had to guess off the dome, and we'll look at it here in a second, maybe 400 projectiles. That seems crazy to me, but with no resupply zone, that's kind of where we're at. Projectiles don't have to feed as fast. In years past, being able to just absolutely mag dump was a pretty good advantage. I think indexing is going to be more important. It's going to be super important on the hero, but I'd argue even on the standard, I'm going to want pretty precise click fires. It'll help with peeking walls. Ooh, Nomad, that's a great question. Asking if the RMNA matches last year recorded how many 17mm projectiles were fired. You know what? I don't know off the dome. Let's go check if it's in the stream. Let's go on an adventure. Oh, snap. Look at that rebrand. So fast. But Nomad, I think that's Ian. This number is going to be pretty inaccurate to this current year. So this was last year. We saw teams firing 800, 700 17mm projectiles. This included sentry projectiles as well. I don't know that SFU and RHIT both had functional sentries in these matches. But definitely our standard doesn't need to carry 938 projectiles, right? The kicker is this year, the barrel heat limit, I believe, is going to keep us from firing 1,000 projectiles. So for the infantry bot, we have a max barrel heat of 230. We cool at a constant rate of 14 heat per second. If we go burst priority. If we go cooldown priority, we have a max heat of 88 and a cooling rate of 24. How much do we acquire per shot? It should be in its own section. Maybe above everything we've already read. All right. For each 17 millimeter projectile detected, the referee system, the current barrel heat is increased by 10. So you get 10 barrel heat per shot. And if you go cooldown priority, you get 24 per second. And the matches are... How long are the matches, chat? Does anyone know off the top of their head? Are they still like 3 minutes? Goodness gracious. 1v1s is 2 minutes. That's still the 1v1s. That's the engineering challenge. Alright, 3 minutes. It's still 3 minutes. Cool. Nope, that's the setup period. Goodness gracious. Does this thing not say how long specifically the 3v3 is? Okay. So 3v3s is a 5-minute battle, but that includes... Is that including setup period? Goodness gracious, chat. This is redonkulous. 1v1s just put it right in the smack dab beginning. Is it really 5 minutes? Okay. I mean, it still says a 5-minute battle. That's crazy. Yeah, but like, there's no way you'd have to miss so many times. You'd have to miss so many times. Which, I mean, we're gonna plan on missing quite a bit, to be completely honest with you. But It's a 5-minute match, as we have painfully confirmed. So we got 5 minutes. So we have 300 seconds. So we have barrel heat. Yeah, so 720 projectiles if you were firing literally nonstop on cooldown priority. And that's assuming you're spacing them out so that you never reach maximum barrel heat, which I don't think is totally possible. I mean, if we just assume, like, I don't know, 80% involvement rate, we're down to 575 projectiles. We're gonna make some notes. Let's go on back over here. So let's say 575 max. Because all we really need to know for right now is that we don't need to do anything more than 570 projectiles. This is still crazy. I think we're going to be substantially less than 575. I'm thinking more like 400 or 450. But I'm going to wait to make that final call till we do a little bit of packing factor math and figure out what that volume is when we're looking at hopper styles and placement, right? This is one of the things that we should consider. If we're going to put the hopper in the bottom, if we're going to do bottom fed, we can actually probably feasibly fit 450, 500 projectiles. If we're going top fed, I think there's too many cons to making your gimbal try to carry around almost 600 projectiles. That would be crazy pants. All right, strategy wise, is there anything else that's going to be super important this year? Let's take a little peek at the map. It will inspire. Dude, swappable hoppers. Okay, Ian, let me pitch this back to you. Why swappable hoppers, and why not just like do a hopper that can fit? I mean, I don't know, say like 500, and then just, if in your practice matches you're only firing 350, 400 projectiles, just fill your hopper less. Like I get that you lose some marginal gains, but I think I don't know, man. Swappable hoppers kind of sketches me out. I think the height that you would have to change on your hopper is so small that just pouring less projectiles in is probably going to make the bigger difference, just so you don't have the weight and that kind of issues. I don't know. I think there's something there. You could do like something modular. So instead of having the whole hopper swap out, you could have like a section of the top that kind of slides off so that the cup is shorter, right? And just take off like the top chunk and slide the new lid on. Oh my goodness, the lid does not need to open and close. I mean, like, it needs to open so you can fill the robot up, but it's not resupplying. So yeah, Ian, for sure. John asked, as a first-year team, are we designing a turret through the slip ring, or are we not worried about 360 rotation this year? I think we are. I think 2025, if you're coming into ARC, you need to be worried about spin to win year one. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm also fairly confident that, especially if we go top fed, that it won't be an issue. If we do a top fed standard, we don't really have to worry so much about the slip ring. It's just electrical components going through. I think you have to have spin to win, or you just get cooked in every match. I think CV is not super needed your first year. I don't think you need to spend the time. I think you should spend the time making sure your software has soft stops for power, and power limiting, and like barrel heat management, and maybe some UI aspects. But I think hardware-wise and software-wise, 100%, we're gonna go spin to win year one. It also is such a pain in the butt change to make later. Like you don't want to build a bot that doesn't spin and then have to try and implement that next year. Whereas if you have a bot that spins but doesn't have CV, or you have a bot that spins but I don't know, it isn't fully optimized somewhere else, I feel like those other changes are easier to make down the road. It's a good consideration though, and I want to make sure we're considering those things. It is important to kind of pick what functionality really means, because I have harped so frequently about having a functional bot. All right, I'm taking a look at the field to see if there's anything else that really stands out to me, strategy wise. If this bot goes well this year, if we get the prime subs that we need and the donations that make this feasible, and Shar and Matt and I kind of are able to fit it into our schedule, and it's fun and engaging, and y'all like it. I would love to continue next year and just kind of do what a normal team would do and improve the bot and add those cool nice to haves. I mean, y'all understand. It's also just fun for me as an engineer. I will love having getting to replace the little S1 behind my back with a standard that I built again. That'll be super duper fun. So looking at the field, being able to jump off the walls, I think will be important. Going up the ramps will be important for sure. The bumpy road, I think we've addressed that suspension will be important. This year, we are not going to worry about expanding. I think the terrain this year does reward teams that can get taller. I still don't think there's a huge benefit to going wider. And then we will definitely design for some durability. All right. So some final things we want to talk about for strategy. We want to design for durability, swappable, replaceable parts. Hashtag CU 2025. Right? You don't want to have this awesome robot, and then if one piece of your bot breaks, of course there will be some parts where if one part of your bot breaks, you're doomed. But like, we're gonna print some extras. We'll talk about making sure that there's not like a 7 bolts you have to unscrew to get to the one little set screw that holds your feeding spinner on there and takes you 45 minutes. Or if you'll remember back to that time A&M had to like get to their electronics in their bot and basically took an entire standard apart on the field in like 6 timeouts. It was craziness. So we do want to make sure we're being careful to design for replaceable parts as much as we can. Maybe this is the series that just makes me eat a bunch of crow and take all of my things back. But I really hope that this is a way to kind of showcase functional bots. All right. Chat, anything that I'm missing? Anything that, we're about to talk about wheels probably before we end tonight, but anything else that we just need to define our scope? I think setting our scope is really crucial. You can do it kind of informally. I've watched enough RoboMasters and now Arc. I will have watched enough Arc this year that I feel fairly comfortable with an informal kind of comparison and scope definition. Or you can do like a house of quality or some kind of structured matrix, a Pew matrix or whatever, to help you decide between different styles and different ups and downs. John said if he ever gets to build a bot again, he wants the bot to be modular in a way that can swap out entire assemblies. Bro, we saw it was not China, it was RMNA last year. Edison's team, you could hot swap the gimbal. The entire gimbal came off and had pins. It had pinned connections, and it had a collar. You could unlock the collar and pull the head off. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Where are the shorts? Oh yeah, check this out. I'm gonna rip my own content. Look at this. You guys can't hear it, but it's just me, and you can hear me right now. SFU. Look at this. He unlocks this collar, and then he goes, boop, gimbal. Freaking mad lad, dude. Oh, so cool. All right. We will not be doing that, but more swappable parts. I am on board. Very much on board. All right, let's talk about wheel style for a second. We're a first year team, both in our imaginations and very much so in reality. In my opinion, first year team means we're not doing swerve. We don't have the motors, frankly, to do swerve. I don't want to ask y'all to donate enough that we have an extra like $900 to spend on motors to do swerve. I understand that this year there's a pretty substantial benefit to doing swerve with some of the efficiency gains that you might get going up ramps and for things like the bumpy road. I don't think we're going to do something crazy. So we're kind of left with Mechnum wheels or Omni wheels. I'm leaning towards Mechnum wheels, frankly, because that's kind of the bread and butter of an RMUC or an ARC style robot. There's also not a huge amount of downsides, in my opinion. I think this is a field that encourages movement in addition to spin speed. I know there's some differences in efficiency of spin speed versus translational movement. I don't know. Anyone else have strong opinions? I don't think it's crucial either way. Yeah, I'm a fan of Mechnum. I think most first-year teams would go Mechnum anyway. I can't bold things in Notepad. Tragic. Should have opened plus plus. We're probably going top fed, but we're going to leave this to look at. This is going to kind of hinge on... Yeah, Mechnum do look way cooler. Hot take maybe, but Omni wheels just always look like high school robotics to me. Don't kill me, chat. This decision for top fed or bottom fed is gonna hinge on the size of the hopper. So that's gonna be, you know, a packing factor and total projectile count kind of combo that we need. Sweet. I think we've got our scope pretty well. I mean, you know, roughly sketched out. So let me outline the next couple episodes, and then we'll call it a night for tonight. And yeah, slip rings will get pricey if we go bottom fed. We'll look at it. Bottom fed typically has had so little advantages, but with the new game style this year, needing this high of a projectile count, it finally has kind of a large pro in the columns. But we'll look at how big a hopper really needs to be. It's also interesting, and you don't have to. John asks, speaking of looking like a high school team, what's the idea for a chassis design baseline? I don't think I understand your question. Can you rephrase, please? But while John retypes, or someone else helps me understand what he means by a chassis design baseline, let's talk a little bit about the hardware section of Rep Standard. So the Rep Standard path to awesomeness. Step 1, talk to electrical. And software, aka Shar and Matt. This is going to help us get answers to the questions above and really hammer down. We know what our external volume is. How much internal volume do we need? Are we all kind of in agreement? It'll also help us finish communicating, and us can be like, hey, dude, we're doing Mechnum wheels. And they can be like, oh, okay, that means I can code things differently. Oh, okay, I got you. C-channel box is an option. Box tube or C-channel, totally an option, but not really ideal. But getting too detailed isn't worth it, so what's the goal? It's a great question. We'll see where we land. That's going to play into our own unique strengths and weaknesses. I have some crazy ideas, but I do have a because of my work, I have some access to some unique amounts of composite materials. So I do have the ability I've learned through my own work for the last few years how to do carbon fiber layup. I also have access to some carbon fiber and some vacuum tables and some of the tools that I would use to do a layup. So at the very least, we'll be doing some custom carbon fiber bumpers. Probably like a custom carbon fiber hopper. I'll probably be doing a lot of like 5% infill 3D prints that I then wrap in carbon fiber and get crazy. Yeah. Me and Ian are telepathically saying the same thing in chat and on stream at the same time. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning. I understand that for a lot of first year teams that might not be feasible, but frankly, if you make it out of laser cut wood or carbon fiber or aluminum extrusion, or you just do like a freaking PETG carbon fiber reinforced 3D printed parts, uh, I think the material you're using to make the bot, there are so many good options within a reasonable price range, in my opinion, for the chassis, that I think I don't know. I'm not too concerned about using the advantages that we've got. So step number 1 is going to be talk to electrical. Hopefully our next episode will have one of them on. We'll figure out what our internal volumes need to look like. And then we'll kind of chat with them about which system we want to start on. Then we'll start with system 1 design. So let's just say for right now that's the chassis. That's gonna take a final look at the scope. Rough design with sketching, like real sketching, not CAD. And then we're gonna find all the parts. This will be a good opportunity, if you're a new team and you're like, gotta make it, you can find most of the parts that we need to CAD. We're gonna grab the wheels from somewhere. We're gonna grab all the motors from somewhere. We're gonna grab the boards. If we can't find the boards that we need, we're gonna make little boxes. If we can't find parts, I also have access to some 3D scanning at work. Could be a fun little side quest to do a 3D scan of specific ARC parts for fun at work? Question mark? We'll see. Then we're gonna CAD it up. Include everything. Man alive, when I tell you the number of times I have skipped little bits and pieces because if you don't have like SolidWorks Toolbox set up, they're obnoxious and you're like, I don't need to import fasteners. Okay, sure. but the number of builds I've done now where I build something at work and then I put it together in real life and realize that like the bolt heads or the lengths or the nuts mess up my tolerances or whatever. It's not a large number because now I model better, but we're gonna do it. It'll be a lot of fun. And then we'll build system 1. Once we've built system 1, then we'll send system 1 off to be a real boy. And then someone with lots of smarts and brains will turn system 1 into something that moves and does stuff. So for example, right, the chassis. And then they'll start putting out episodes, and we will dive into system 2. So I'll say that's the gimbal, right? Etc. I mean, I understand that maybe, obviously we're all going to have different design kind of thoughts in our minds. Some teams would love to CAD the whole thing first because it will look so pretty in your computer and it will be so nice. And also, you probably have a lot of hardware members because mechanicals, engineers, there are a lot of us, and we all love CADing cool robots. But the advantage to building one system and getting it built and cutting it off nice and cleanly at an interface where you've kind of decided it beforehand, both within your own team and with the other interdisciplinary teams you're working with, what that interface will look like. That way I can hand that to Shar and Matt, and they can start putting wires in, and they can start motorizing, and they can start coding. Means that our whole team doesn't have to write all of the code in the last 2 weeks. So, yeah. Yeah. Chat, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to do this with y'all. I love the thoughts and opinions that you're already having. Let me give YouTube chat one peek. Oh, I shouldn't minimize that. That way it stays up. There we go. Let me give YouTube chat one more peek before I hop off tonight. Make sure I haven't missed anything. Make sure you've hit the follow button. It's free. Hit follow on Twitch. Hit subscribe on YouTube. Each of those is free on its respective thingy. That will help you stay on the know of when these are happening. They're going to be fairly sporadic. I'm going to need to do a lot of these episodes to actually get the standard done. We're going to try and do some normal rep episodes as well. The titles will be correct, hopefully. So that way, if you turn on no notifications, you can just see every time you do get a notification. If it's a standard episode and you're sick of it, cool. Just wait for the real rep episodes to come out. If the standard episodes are popping up and you're like, oh, freaking sick, let's see what shenanigans Preston is up to this time. Hop in here. Let's build a robot together. It'll be a whole lot of fun. See if we can't be competitive in the salty sweets. But that's it for tonight. Thanks, guys, for hopping in here. Ideate, think on it. If you have any crazy ideas, you can, most of you can access me in the ARC Discord. You can shoot us a DM in the ARC Discord or throw it in the general chat or whatever. We'll find it. Thanks. Bye.